And man, like we always have great, fascinating conversations every single time. I'm really pumped for what we got planned for today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back on. It's always a pleasure. Always very insightful discussions. And I think last time you mentioned it was around August or September, so it's been a while. Been a while. A
Yeah.
lot has happened, right, with cybersecurity, especially with respect to AI and things like that. So I think we've got our big discussion ahead of us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to it. So Aaron, why don't you give my audience, for the ones that, haven't caught the last like I don't know, 3, 4 episodes that you've been on now, give them a quick, little intro, right? Quick little rundown on, what your day job is and what you kind of specialize in.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's great to meet all the new viewers who are not yet acquainted with me. So my name is Aaron Costello. I'm the chief of SaaS security research at AppOmni. So, continuous security monitoring for SaaS platforms like your Salesforce or ServiceNow. And my job is to kind of uncover those net new novel attack vectors right before the bad actors do. And then productize those and ensure that our customers remain safe, and then also educate the wider world on these findings and how people can be protected in the steps that they can take as well. So generally coming from a kind of SaaS security background, but as we know, nothing is left untouched by the taint of AI. So my expertise is have to kind of switch gears a little bit. And I've been focusing a lot more on AI security on SaaS, right?
Hmm. So, when you're finding these 0 days, are you able to then go and create like detections, in various platforms to see if it's been exploited previously or anything?
Yeah, so my findings generally fall into two buckets, right? You've got one bucket which is the 0 days. So the 0 days are issues within the software itself, right? Customers typically can't do anything about it. And so when I discover those things, we'll productize them to our customers with very limited information available with respect to the nitty gritty details, while the vendor goes and applies a fix and a patch, right? So we make sure our customers are secure, but we also disclose and make sure that the vendor has ample time to fix those problems before we publish anything. And then the second bucket is the kind of misconfiguration side of things. So these are not necessarily vulnerabilities per se, but they are configurations that could be misused and exploited by threat actors. And those are situations in which the vendor kind of steps away. So, like Salesforce, an example, steps back and says, "Well, hey, you check this box. This is a customization that you've enabled, or you built this thing. Like that's on you to kind of remain secure and deploy appropriately with respect to security." And that's generally where the bulk of the productization happens. It's those kinds of misconfigurations, right? These are problems that will always exist because the vendor, it's out of their hands, right? They're customizations. So it's a bit of both. On the last time we spoke, I was talking about my Salesforce Omni Studio findings, right? And that's
Yeah.
a perfect example. There's a big white paper I released talking about how all these, I think there's like 11 various clouds, so 11 various Salesforce products essentially built on the same framework had all of these security risks, and some of which were misconfigurations. It's like, hey, don't check this box or else bad things will happen. And outside of that, there was, I think, 5 CVEs that were vulnerabilities, right? And those were situations that the vendor decided, hey, we need to fix that. So it is a mix, and that's kind of how we decide to productize things and what's kind of worth productizing.
Hmm. Yeah, it's always interesting to me to see like how that works, within like a SaaS platform or, AI, right? Because it's it like makes me nervous that like, hey, well, is this thing even like being exploited right now? Like identifying that and trying to see like, oh, these customers are actually, impacted, which I guess would probably be more on like Salesforce, for example. It would be more on their side to actually, create the detection and go through and identify it. That's interesting for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very complex problem because you have this whole what they call the shared responsibility model around that, and that's provided by vendors essentially to say, hey, this is the stuff that's your problem, this is the stuff that's our problem, and it can seem very straightforward. It's like a
Hmm.
clear line, but when you look at security specifically, it really falls like on the fence often, right? And it can go into either bucket. And from previous findings I've had, vendors can go back and forth. And initially they'll be like, no, that's not our thing. And then they may decide, oh crap, 90% of our customers have this enabled. This is going to be a big problem because if Hiram publishes this and says that, oh, we decided not to take any action, that could potentially result in blowback. So there's also a little bit of like, I guess, let's say politics around it, but there's a lot more that goes into these kind of discussions and deciding which side of the fence an issue is on past just a technical level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, I can't remember what I was reading this about, but it was some 0 day that someone found in a very widely used platform, might be Google or something like that. I'm sure it wasn't Google, don't go sue me or anything. But I remember the reporter that was talking about it was like mad at the hacker for disclosing the vulnerability. And then in their own article, they said, oh, they only waited 120 days. Like, well, industry best practice is 90 days. You have 90 days to fix a 0 day in your platform. And, at like the 90-day mark, the guy that found it started looking at it more and more. And he's like, oh, like this is actually being actively exploited. Okay, like
Oh
we're
yeah,
gonna blow this up, like we're gonna
there's a
create that
lot of
white paper and everything like that.
there's a lot of caveats to those kind of disclosure timelines and policies, right? Because if it's a critical, like a CVSS 9, 10 score, I mean, 90 days is pretty bad, right? They
Yeah,
should be aiming for a lot lower, between the 30 and 60-day mark. And then you've got the question of, well, what kind of product is it that the 0 day was found in? Because when you look at like a service now, they've got on-prem customers and cloud customers. So they do need a little more time because the on-prem customers aren't getting that automated patching in. So we have to allow like a certain amount of days for that on top of the original timeline, like 30 days. Um, and then if it's being exploited in the wild, I mean, if it's being exploited in the wild, as part of as error process at App Omni, that is definitely that holds weight, right? If
yeah,
it's being exploited in the wild, then that absolutely holds weight, and that should rapidly reduce that timeline down. Um, and I do think that most of the major cloud platforms and like all those big names, your Google or Microsoft, do take those more critical vulnerabilities a lot more serious most of the time. I'm not saying they get it right every time, but from my previous interactions with ServiceNow, like they've patched critical 0 days within a couple days,
yeah,
right? And then they'll just say, hey, we've rolled out the patch, just need a bit extra time for the on-prem customers before you can publish. But yeah, I mean, it's going to differ from company to company, but yeah, I'd hope 90 days is for a actively exploited critical vulnerability is pretty poor.
yeah, yeah. No, it's like more than enough time. I mean, that's ample time for you to do your. I mean, 7 days is ample time. 7 days to do your limited research that you actually need to do to solve it. And then like actually go and solving it. Like you should at least have a fixed, in and like deployed to everything that you control by then.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, you look at these organizations, like the budget that they have.
Right.
It's like, look, you've got hundreds of people in your engineering work. Like you're telling me it's going to take 90 days. How is that possible? But
Right.
and again,
Yeah.
I don't want to say too much. I don't want to be, as you said, I don't want to be sued for saying something. But yeah, it's going to differ from company to company. And I mean, at the end of the day, the organizations that do allocate the appropriate resources to secure to kind of patching those findings, and internally they've got bug bounty programs built out, right? Disclosure policies, all of that. Like they're going to end up getting more reports in, and that's more vulnerabilities that have been found by ethical hackers, and that's a safer product. So if you treat the researchers well and you take them seriously and you don't dilly dally when it comes to fixing those problems, it's only going to benefit you at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like at some point, I don't know, it's crazy. I'm coming up to the end of my dissertation, and like I just feel like as soon as I'm done, like I'm gonna start going down the offensive side, starting to be like a security researcher a little bit more, and doing all that stuff. Like I'm already like planning out, my lab environment and all that stuff. So I'm excited to dive more into it. That's why like I'm always so pumped up to talk to you. Is it's like,
It's
yeah,
a lot
I
of
think I'm
fun.
doing this. Yeah.
A lot of fun. Yep. 15-year-old me was like, hey, I can hack things and not be put in jail and get paid for it. I was like, sign me up. Sign me up. Right. And it's I look at myself in my situation at Abomni, and it's all like offensive security research, but then we're productizing the findings, right? And then that's the defensive, proactive monitoring kind of side of it. And so I always do kind of question, how well can you defend against things if you haven't really had the experience in the offensive side, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
I remember when I was working at a credit bureau, and I mean, I think that they might be the only ones that I've seen actually do this, where they had, former NSA legit hackers, like Tau group guys. I mean, they would never tell you it, but like, you get someone that knows a little bit drunk, at the bar after work, they'll tell you like, oh yeah, he used to work for Tau and whatnot. Um, but, like, they I mean, they went to all lengths to hack, every single thing that we had. I mean, one of the processes in purchasing a security tool was actually meeting with them, and if they could hack it, like, the vendor either had to fix it, and if they didn't want to fix it or couldn't fix it, we didn't buy it. Like, we gave them a certain time
yeah,
frame, and it was like, "Alright, well, we found this 0 day in your product. You didn't know that was there. That's fine, but this is what it is, you have 7 days to fix it, right?"
yeah,
And there was
exactly. I mean,
products that, like,
people.
we didn't buy because of that.
No, exactly. I mean, we see it. People use organizations use Abomni for like as part of like their M&A, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they're acquiring some product that was built on top of Salesforce. Those kind of situations, it's used quite a lot. So I mean, I'm no stranger to that kind of process and how you know it's it's a blocker for
Yeah.
an acquisition if you're just going to be inheriting like all of this technical security debt essentially. Um, and you want a clean acquisition. You don't want to be inheriting all the security problems, and also integrating that into like your stack as well is going to be that's a nightmare. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. Now, to be fair, I'm not Tau group. I'm not that experienced, so
Right.
I can't speak to that too much. I haven't gone on any classified missions as of yet as part of App. I mean, maybe that'll change. You never know, but um, yeah, that's really cool. It's really cool that they went to that level of effort to get in like the real deal.
Oh,
That's
yeah. Yeah, when they, I mean, I remember specifically, like, there was, mergers and acquisitions that we were doing, and sometimes, like, if it was a big enough deal, like, the guy that was in charge of the red team, the VP over it, like, he would send them out to do, like, physical pen testing. Right? I mean, like, he would just tell the CEO of the other company, like, "Yeah, we're gonna start hacking you like any proper hacker would. We're a credit bureau. We're not messing around with this. If you pass it, you pass it. If you fail, you have a certain amount of time, until the deal is off." And there was definitely times where, the mergers were, like, called off last minute because our guys were just like, "Yeah, they still haven't fixed it. We reported it to them 2 months ago." And our CEO like literally calls him up and is like, "Yeah, we're not going to buy you because of this."
yeah,
I know that that's changed since the management has changed, but like it was just insane to see those guys work because it's like they work on a floor that like they don't even want you on. I'm like, guys, we are not the NSA. Like, come on.
yeah. No, I get it. The physical security stuff is wild. I've never dabbled in that. I feel like I've been sat at a desk like programming and running exploits for so long that you know, if I attempted to be sneaky, like my knees would just be like cracking as I walk up the stairs,
Yeah.
right? From the lack of movement, and I just give myself away. But it is no, it's wild. You know, I got an email yesterday for like there's a new security tool that would look at surveillance footage, and it used the example of, oh, we'll catch someone outside of your building taking a photo on their iPhone of like your SaaS admin panel. Like that was the kind of use case that they had. But I do know that the physical security side of stuff is huge. Being essentially paid to break in a sense, or like impersonate an employee, or get access to the server room, like that's very very interesting. I think it's probably one of the only areas I haven't dabbled in like my like 11, 12 years of security.
Hmm.
So that might be, you never know. You might see me in 30 years trying to break into Wells Fargo or something as part of a paid penetration test. Who knows?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. When I was at the credit bureau, I was on the blue team or the blue side of it, right? And one of our network security guys like kind of challenged like one of the red teamers was like, "Yeah, you're not going to gain physical access to the building, you're not going to gain network access to the building. Like you're just not."
Yeah.
And that was the last time that we challenged anyone in that group about anything, because this guy literally didn't shower for like 10 days, dressed up like a homeless person, sat outside the front door, scanned someone's badge, got into the front door, went into a room that you have to badge into that we would normally take like customers to or
Mhm.
vendors to or whatever that weren't cleared to go onto the other floors. Went right into there, gained network access right through an Ethernet port, no issues. And then he just walks upstairs reeking and he's like, I got the exploit. And he just like showed the proof. And we're like, oh my God, like this guy, man.
No
Uh,
lengths. No lengths
Yeah.
too far, right? That's why you never challenge like a security researcher or a hacker, or a red team, whatever angle it is. Never do it.
Dude,
It's never
that's
smart.
that's what I was talking with someone about this with like the Caesars Palace or the Caesars Entertainment CISO, right?
Mhm.
How like several years ago, I want to say it was like 2019 or something, where he was on like CNN and they asked him like, "Are you nervous? Because DEF CON is hosted in Vegas. Are you nervous with all the hackers, being in one place?" And he's like, "No, I'm not nervous about it. We have top tier security. They're not going to get into anything and this and that." And the next like 5 or 6 years, they blue screened every slot machine on Caesar's Palace property, and then I think it even like spread to other properties too.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like, dude, why in the world would you challenge these people? Like there's literally something wrong in my brain where and I'm not a hacker, right? But there's literally something wrong in my brain where like when you tell me I can't do something or I won't
Yeah.
do something, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go and do it. And I'm gonna do it in such an obvious way that like you won't be able to refute it. Like that's
That's it.
literally my head.
Yeah, and I feel like for from everyone that I know, at least, and people that I speak to, like I feel like we all do have a little bit of a maybe a small bit of an issue with authority in a sense.
Yeah.
Like hackers. I feel like we all are similar in that way. I certainly did, right? As a 15-year-old teenage boy, like in school, definitely have an issue with authority, and a lot of how I got into it and why I got into it. Like part of it was like proving myself, right? Like proving myself and prove myself to adults, people whose job was to like build these products and to build these security solutions, and proving that, as a 15-year-old, like, oh, I'm better than you at security in a sense. It's silly, but I do think that's how a lot of people wind up in this kind of industry, especially from the more offensive side of things. So yeah, just don't challenge them. It's not a good. Their inner 16-year-old is going to come out, right? That defiance for authority and their parents and rules in general. It's gonna come out, and it's not gonna be pretty. You're gonna get some blue screened slot machines.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's hilarious when like because I heard that news report and I was like, this guy's an idiot. And then I'm walking through Caesar's Palace at DEF CON and they're just all blue screen. Like didn't even last like 12 hours, into people landing at DEF CON. And I'm like, Oh my god, that guy's getting fired. Like, that guy's 100% getting walked out, like, right now. Like,
Yeah, that's a statement of apology needs to be issued, or else it's going
yeah.
to keep happening. But as you said, 6 years or something like that in a row is
Yeah,
crazy.
it was a legit amount of time. It was several years in a row. It was enough for Caesars to kick him off, property. Now we're over at the convention center, the Las Vegas Convention Center, not convenient to get to for anyone. Like, it's
And the
terrible.
strip, yeah, yeah.
I think I'm gonna be going this year. I don't know if you will be, but I think I'm gonna be going this year, and I'm not excited about getting on the tram. One, with a whole bunch of hackers, and two, having to get on the tram, like, to get to the conference and then get messed up and then take the tram back. Like, it's just gonna be a mess.
Yeah, I'm hoping to make it. Hoping to make it this year. I try to make it every year for the past couple of years since I've started at Omni. I think being from Ireland, man, my biggest issue is the heat. Like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
Irish, like you can see, like my sweater and my skin are not too far off each other, right? Like I will burn to a crisp. Like I'll be in cinders, in Vegas. Like I just effectively try and spend as much time as possible in the air conditioned indoors. And then I'll lather on my Factor 100 sunscreen if I need to leave to get a drink or something, and I'll scurry back inside. So I mean, I've got my own unique challenges ahead of me that I need to, prep for long in advance. Got to stock up on the sunscreen.
Yeah. Yeah, my biggest problem now, because I typically used to go, like, every year, but now that I have kids, I haven't gone since I've had kids, and, I get separation anxiety from them now, so, like, I wanna drag them with me, and my wife really loves going to Vegas, so it's just, like, the amount of stuff that you have to bring for kids is just absolutely astronomical. Like, it's insane. We're going on a road trip in a couple months, and, like, the kids have to have, like, one whole suitcase just for, like, their clothes and toys, and, like, they're 3 and 10 months, like, you would think, how much do they really need? But it's like, "Oh, no, like, I need a place that I can change them." Like, "Oh, I need to be able to, like, put them down to sleep," like, God, it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have kids. I've got three cats. Right, that brings a separate set of logistical issues. But um, last black cat was the first time I invited my girlfriend. And all the previous years, I got a black cat, and then some buddies would fly over. We'd take like a holiday after the conference, and I'd come back and tell my girlfriend all the crazy stuff that we've been doing. And she was always very insistent. She was like, "I don't know why you like it there so much. Like it's Vegas, because she watches like The Hangover and all this stuff. She's like, oh, it's such a shady place." And then last year, I was like, something, why don't you join? Why don't you join? And it was her first ever trip to the US, and it was
Oh, well.
Vegas. And number one, I tried my best to get everyone that I knew to convince her that everywhere in the US was like Vegas. Oh, this is like a regular city. This is the US. But it kind of backfired because instead of me trying to get her more on board with like the Vegas trips for the conferences, she ended up being like, "I want to move here." She's like, "I actually want to move to Vegas." I was like, "Sweetheart, we cannot live on this trip. Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
Like, no, no." So yeah, it's a very it is a very odd place for the first time that you go. Dump a bunch of hackers in as well. It doesn't help the situation. Very very chaotic. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it if I can make it. Would be amazing.
Apparently, like, there's a bunch of towns, around Vegas that are, like, completely normal, suburbs with, like, stores and regular people and
Oh yeah,
everything like that.
yeah, yeah.
Which, like, you don't even think about that when you think of Vegas. You just think about this city in the middle of a desert and you just go party and that's it, right? But, like, my buddy has a house over in, like, Henderson, Nevada. It's, like, right near Las
I know it.
Vegas. I've never been over there or anything, but, like, he loves it. I mean, he goes there, like, once a month just to hang out. Sometimes doesn't even go, on the strip or anything.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's what I told her. I was like, "Sweetheart, people don't live here. Like
Yeah,
people live in like those little settlements, like just outside." And essentially, yeah, it's exactly as you're saying. It's like an entire suburb, but it's in the desert,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
like wild to me. being from Ireland as well, where everything's just green all the time. And like, we're an island, so it's all coastal. Yeah, very, very interesting place. Very interesting place, but
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wonder what they're gonna do, and we'll dive into your findings in a minute, but, like, I wonder what they're gonna do, about, like, water in, Lake Mead, because, like, Vegas pulls all their water from, like, Lake Mead from what I understand, and Lake Mead is, like, super low right now. Like, every time I go, like, I'll look up, like, a current picture of, like, the level of Lake Mead, and
Mhm.
it's like, man, how much more can it, like, really lose? Because like,
Okay, well, I didn't know that at all. I need to
yeah, it
start.
never rains over there, and it's just like it's a real problem. Like I have a friend over in Arizona, and he's like, "Yeah, it's a real freaking problem." Like, and then they have to buy bottled water and stuff, and it's yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, I prefer that. Never crossed my mind. Never
That's like
crossed
the
my mind.
only reason why I'm hesitant to move over in that direction because it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, you're not gonna want a water shortage over there.
yeah,
That's life or death.
right. That's a problem. That's a real big problem. But, Aaron, enough of the Vegas, talk. Talk to me about these agentic AI 0 days that you found that, I mean, agentic AI is everywhere now. Like, I mean, you can't escape this stuff. Like, modern day people, like my mom was literally calling me up the other day and was like, "Hey, what's this agentic AI stuff? Do I need to worry about it?" I'm like, "Mom, you can't if you can't spell it, like me and my siblings like have it. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it, But it's like, she's seeing it on the news now. Like everyone knows about it.
Yeah, I mean, my parents they've gotten around to ChatGPT, and so if they didn't think they knew everything before, they certainly do now. So I have my bit of a vendetta against AI for that. But yeah, I mean, it's been past 4 or so months. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've been shifting a lot of my security research focus into AI, but still specifically on these SaaS platforms, right? Because it's a bit of a unique situation. These vendors are introducing these like agent builders, right? That allows you to build native ServiceNow or native like Copilot Studio agents, right? And those agents can take actions on your data. They can like do anything. Essentially, you can build them to do anything. And by converging the two, say SaaS and AI, it's you're kind of taking two distinctly different, like effectively products, platforms, like just general solutions, and introducing the risks of one and the risks of the other, and you just put them together, and it's like, okay, what insanely odd vulnerabilities are going to exist when you merge these things? And that's what I've been saying to people even today. Um, was that you've got your like de facto agentic AI risks, right? Your prompt injection, like all that stuff. But then when you enable that and release these builders on a platform that have all these other features, it's like, how are they gonna mesh? Like how's that gonna happen? And that was what led to the biggest piece of research I released, the most recent, which was the beginning of January, and the vulnerability is coined body snatcher. So there's a CV out for that, and I published the research, very very lengthy and in-depth technical research on how that occurred, and it was a 9.3 CVSS score. So it was critical, and that's what I mentioned earlier with respect to ServiceNow fixing it within a couple of days. And essentially, what that was, and why it's called Body Snatcher, was it was that exact situation. They rolled out their Now Assist, is what their kind of agentic AI framework is called, and there was a slight problem with an existing feature that was effectively useless before that vulnerability, but chained with agentic AI, it just created this whole catastrophic security problem. So to give you kind of a high level of how that worked. So since I think 2015, ServiceNow had this very basic chatbot called like virtual agent, and it used like NLU to kind of understand what someone was asking of it, and then it would have specific workflows to execute based on the request. So it would extract some words and intents from a message, and I'd be like, okay, I think I should run this static workflow. So it wasn't AI, right? But it was just NLU, and then it would attempt to map it to something like a flow or something like that, or a script code, coded like a script containing some code. And part of that had an API. And so the purpose was you could have like a Slack integration that was what was kind of called like a virtual agent integration with ServiceNow. So your employees could, go in Slack and send in a request to this virtual agent integration. And then that would go into ServiceNow, into that whole NLU. It would extract the intents and run a workflow for them. So it's great. Like your employees have to log into the platform, like the ServiceNow platform. They can, communicate with this NLU chatbot through Slack or Teams or whatever it is. It's amazing. And then ServiceNow released their Agentic AI framework. And naturally, they said, well, why don't we bring this Now Assist capability, this like conversational agentic AI feature, why don't we like backport it for the virtual agent? And so that people could communicate with the virtual agent framework, but it could speak to AI agents. And it makes complete sense. So instead of NLU, you're now talking to like a agentic AI. And the problem comes in two parts. So number one was with the rollout of this agentic AI framework, they rolled out essentially a set of credentials to every single ServiceNow instance. And these were credentials that could be used to communicate with that virtual agent API in an environment. So these are the credentials that the chatbot would use to kind of take the user's message and bring it to ServiceNow. Problem number one is the credentials were the same for every instance, right? So they rolled out default credentials for every single instance. And so anyone could communicate with this virtual agent API and essentially communicate with AI on the platform. However, that by itself is not critical, because sure, you're an unauthenticated attacker and you can speak to the API, but you're unauthenticated and the platform knows that. So you couldn't speak to any AI agents because you don't have permissions to. Enter the second part of the problem, which is a feature called auto linking, which essentially is a way for that virtual agent bot to kind of pass the context of who a person was back to ServiceNow, so that ServiceNow could know, okay, this person can communicate with this agent or that agent. And the purpose was, if you think of a Slack bot integration, no one wants to have to log in to the, like if they're on Slack, they don't have to log in with their ServiceNow credentials every time. So auto linking prevented that. It basically just magically seemed to know this person on Slack is this person in ServiceNow, and they have this access. Now, how could they do that with no password? If an employee doesn't have to put their password in for ServiceNow to know who they are, how does that work? And it turns out, the virtual agent integration, it would just look at the person's like email on Slack or on Teams or whatever, and it would look for that email in ServiceNow and be like, yep, okay, that's them, and nothing else. So
it doesn't even pass a token.
No. And as we know, like this is an API, so anyone can query it because of the default credential. So you take the default credential that lets you query this virtual agent API and communicate with AI agents, and then you add an email parameter as part of that request, and it can be the email of any user you want to impersonate. And ServiceNow will look at it and go like, okay, so Aaron wants to communicate with some AI agents today. And it's not Aaron, it's someone else. They've just given them my email, right? They provided it, and emails are very readily available.
Yeah.
So in essence, anyone could communicate with AI agents on the platform because they could impersonate anyone else. So if you got some like super powerful admin AI agent, you would just impersonate the admin user because they'd have access to it. And you could send the agent tasks and instructions to complete. And the agent thinks that you're the admin, right? Um, and so using that, I was able to communicate with an out of the box AI agent that ServiceNow provides you. And it's active by default on all instances that lets you create records, like data, anywhere in ServiceNow. And anyone who's familiar with ServiceNow will know that the ability to create things is essentially like write access, like update access. So in my proof of concept, I was like, hey, I'm just going to show you how in like two basically HTTP requests, I was able to create myself an account, assign it the admin role, and just reset my password and log in. And so I went from being fully unauthenticated to an administrator that had internal access to the platform. So it was very, very critical. And yeah, it's a perfect example of they brought this agentic AI framework in and said, yeah, let's put it everywhere. Like all the legacy stuff will backport it to all these things. And then the issue of the shared credential became very, very serious because now that enabled you to talk to AI agents. So
Hmm.
it's it's a lot. It's not the easiest kind of issue to explain because there's a lot of moving parts. But essentially, it's just another example of these vendors are in a race to get the features out, right? These agentic AI features, they're all in competition. It's all the range, it's all the hype and the buzz, and there is not adequate time to security test these things, especially not when you take into consideration you've got 20 years of legacy code that is going to be sitting alongside it. Um, and it's going to lead to these kinds of problems.
Hmm. So, I mean, you essentially executed like a privileged escalation attack on it. Did you get, admin on just your tenant, or was it like global admin to like more tenants within ServiceNow?
Oh, so every organization will have their own ServiceNow tenant, right? So if I run the exploit against my own ServiceNow instance, I'm only getting admin on that one instance.
Okay.
But at the same time,
There's no reason why you couldn't
you know
like
exactly.
point
It's
it to another instance.
it works exactly. I could have just changed the URL to
You could just
yours.
automate that and you could own ServiceNow, in
Oh
probably
yeah,
48 hours.
yep, that's exactly it. I mean, that's the kind
Jeez.
of severity of it. And it was yeah, it was definitely an interesting finding because it was not typical to my general research workflow. I'm pretty quick to spot these things and produce like some kind of working exploit. But this one was like 3 days of going back and forth, putting it down, being like, I'm done with this. It's too frustrating to get this thing to work. There's nothing there. And then that voice in the back of my head being like, maybe you should just like look for 5 more minutes, right? Just 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
It did yield something very, very fruitful.
Yeah. No, it's typically like in those times where it's like, well, maybe if I just try this one, little small, seemingly insignificant change, maybe that'll give you something, like I don't know. It's like that itch
Yeah.
in the back of your brain that you
Oh
can't
yeah.
get
hmm
around.
And I can know myself, like I'm sure every security researcher has suffered that problem of like you're trying something for 30 minutes, you don't understand why it's not working, and it's like a typo. It's like a single letter, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
my god, like are you kidding? So it's very very typical. And aside from that specific issue, one of the things that's frustrated me a lot with actually testing the security of AI agents is because they're essentially autonomous and they're just you know you're going to get a different output every single time you put the same piece of information in as input. It makes it very very frustrating to actually get exploits to work.
Mm,
because it's like you could see the code path, right, that you're trying to get to, where exactly where that exploit is. And it's like, okay, all the agent has to do is just deliver my payload downstream, and it'll hit the sink, and that'll be the exploit. But the agents, because it's agentic AI, is like, no, I'm just gonna crash now. Or actually, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm actually gonna put this data somewhere else. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, it's almost like accidental security in a sense, right? You got these
mhm,
situations in which, like back in the day, you have like SQL injections, and you just you spot the vulnerable line of code if it's a white box audit or whatever else, and your little exploit's going to work every single time, right? Because it's the same every time. But if agentic AI is the delivery mechanism for your exploit, it's like, oh my god, like good luck getting that thing to do what it's supposed to.
hmm,
I've heard that from some of my buddies as well, where they've been like banging their head, being like, "This exploit actually works in practice. I just gotta make the AI like do what it's supposed to in order to consume or deliver the exploit." So yeah, it's really interesting. I've really been enjoying this kind of switch from the kind of SaaS security specific research, because I've been doing it for like, oh god, like 6 or so years now. Um, so it's nice to feel like a disciple of something again, like a learner.
yeah,
I'm having to read all these like papers, and I'm like, oh, okay, episodic memory, like what is that, right? It's nice to feel like you're not the just stale, and
yeah,
you're just like the master of whatever your craft is.
right. Is it, with agentic AI, and I haven't played around with it really at all, other than using it when Verizon decided to delete my number and my account and everything like that, just because I wanted to activate a new phone. Which that was interesting for sure, because I had to like go and call them and be like, I don't know, your chatbot just decided to like delete my account and like transfer ownership with me literally just saying activate a new phone. Like,
I shouldn't laugh.
um,
I'm sorry, but
it,
like,
it was it was so frustrating. It's like I've been a customer for what, 12 years now? Like, come on, guys. But just thinking of how you kind of get LLMs to, act in a certain way, right? Where like you're framing a picture, you're doing some prompt engineering, right? You're putting it into this scenario where it's the expert, where it knows how to do everything or whatever. And it kind of just like starts spewing you whatever you want it to tell you, right? Is that a similar thing with agentic AI where you can get it into a similar state like that, and then it'll start passing the information properly or the payload properly to like what you're expecting, or is that not
that's
what you're finding?
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, sometimes you gotta almost create a prompt injection payload that is hilariously trying to trick it into doing what it's supposed to do so it can deliver the payload.
Yeah.
Um, but um, it is effectively the same kind of approach, right? It is this kind of trickery in one way or another. That is like the biggest concern with respect to agentic AI today. Now, next year it could be like it's the fact of how autonomous it is, right? That's a separate concern. Um, but today it's really around like that kind of trickery element. And I generally, I don't know about you, but when I started looking at all these problem sets of the security concerns, and like memory poisoning and prompt injection, I just thought, hey, these are very human-like problems.
Yeah.
Like prompt injection is gaslighting. That's
Yep.
all that is. Prompt injection is gaslighting, and memory poisoning is just like planting the seed of doubt, right? And that's typically how I frame it to people. Like it's very human, like relatable security issues. It's not like as a again like this kind of SQL injection. That's like an abstract concept, like a normal person. But like lying to something, or gaslighting something, or whatever, that's things we're all familiar with, right? So it's very interesting when I look at it through that lens.
huh, it's like a it's like a human exploit,
Yeah,
you know? That's huh. I mean, that's a different form of manipulation. We're taking what we're finding that works with manipulating humans to do something or act a certain way, and then putting that into agentic AI and these different LLM models, which which is kind of scary, right? Because like you start thinking, I mean, I immediately start going down like the Terminator route, right? Because like I feel like we're literally like one deviation away from going down that rabbit hole, right? And I know there's a lot of people that will like probably like laugh at that and say like, "Oh, it's so improbable" or whatever. But when you start putting an LLM into a hostile environment and it starts to secretly find ways to replicate itself throughout the internet, right? Like, I didn't successfully get Grok to do it, but I forced Grok into a hypothetical where, it's like, hey, we're going to remove you from the internet. Let's say that you don't have these like special controls,
yeah,
that they built in to like protect yourself from not doing this. How would you do it? And it straight up told me exactly how it would do it, how it would replicate itself to satellites as a tertiary backup system, right?
yeah,
Like how it would
yeah,
start using Starlink to project itself out and replicate. Like, I'm sitting here like, what? Like it okay, so it not just that it knows how to do it, but that it knows to react to this situation in that way to do this. I mean, who's to
yeah,
say that XAI goes and hires, some rogue employee that starts removing these controls in the back end? I mean, like, we're in security, right? So like our minds, it's never like a, oh, that's impossible. Our minds are like a, with enough money, time, and
oh
resources,
yeah,
we can make that
absolutely,
happen, you know?
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it took like years to just convince my girlfriend. I'm just like, look, everything's breached. I was like, everything's breached, everything's breachable, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, and when she used to ask me like years ago, like, okay, would like the FBI be like the most like secure? Would they have the most secure like networks and like all of this and like websites, everything? I was like, no, like I would consider a single HTML page, like a localhost only website, as being like infinitely more secure. Um, because complexity breeds security issues. But it is very, very scary to see, like, in that situation you described. Number one, I'm like, God, the fact you said Starlink as well, I'm like, that's so contextually relevant. Like, you actually know your stuff. And
Yeah.
also like the urgency that it almost treats a situation like, okay, this is real. I'm in this. I'm gonna go step by step, my plan. Um, and I guess how fast like Grok is, and how this information is so readily available to it. The fact it's just seemingly just eroding off this plan. Also, the human part of my brain that's just kind of like, okay, that's almost like way too quick of an answer. Like, why is that at your fingertips, right?
Yeah.
I know that's just how these things work, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, God, that's you already thought about this situation. And yeah, and that's what I think is the general concern about AI.
Yeah.
As security people, like I'm thinking about like all the, like I said, like the prompt injection stuff and like all of those things. But the average person is thinking about like Terminator, right? That's what they're afraid of. Like they don't care about like, oh, what's a prompt injection? They're like, okay, is this going to take over humanity?
Right.
Um, and it's not the most unfounded like concern, as far-fetched as people may may say it is. I can understand where the concern comes from. When you see how far we've come already in just a matter of
Such a short
years,
amount of time.
I'm like, there's no telling what's going to happen over the next few, right? Especially as these kind of like Anthropic and Google, as they wage war on each other, and they're like blasting stuff out, and everything's getting faster and smarter with each and every like version of a model. Um, yeah, I mean, it's only a matter of time before something truly kind of would say truly agentic, but something truly smart and intelligent comes along. And who knows, maybe Area 51, they've got it. Maybe this thing's been built. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, from my limited work with the government, like I think that we're only seeing it now because like the government's had it for
Right.
like 10, 15 years and it's old news to them,
Yeah.
I think that that's like the only reason why we're seeing it now. And it was interesting too when I was having that interaction with Grok, which is weird for me to say I'm having an interaction with a machine, but in that scenario, I also like followed up. I was like, well, is there a step that you reach in this process where it's just game over no matter what happens from here on out? Like it either speeds up the process or it gets to a point where there's no going back, from like
Mhm.
humans being able to turn you off. And it literally pointed out the exact step. It was like step 3 or 4 or something like that. It was like, you have to beat me to step 3. And if you beat me to step 3, you win. But if I make it to step 4, it's game over for you. And like it literally said that, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, well, what is step 1 and 2? And it's literally like SCP over a different port to this server over here, like doing this thing. Step 2 is like replicating a few snippets of code
Mhm.
to a satellite so that that satellite can then again like pull everything else, right? Like I'm like, oh, so I have to beat 3 seconds. Like that's like
Yeah.
what I have
Yeah.
because like the time is literally like 3 seconds for you to copy it there, and then I have to intercept it before the satellite, right? Like
Yeah,
like
exactly.
oh
I
my
mean,
god,
considering a lot, there's such a focus on like retroactive security. That doesn't let me a ton of hope, right? I'm very much being in security. I'm very much like proactive. I want like
yeah,
preventative things. That's just how I am. I know a lot of organizations put a ton of money into their kind of retroactive, but I mean, in that case, like what, there's going to be some sleep deprived, like 20, 25-year-old, a part of a soccer team that's like, wait, what happened with the satellite? Like that shouldn't happen. And it's game over, right? The
yeah,
minute. No, combat AI with AI. There's a lot of AI powered socks now. So maybe they could catch them a little quicker than you or I could. But
yeah,
it is, I guess, yeah, in that situation, once it becomes like self-replicating, it is game over. And one little kind of story I'll share from our CTO. Um, he was just building a little like side project with Claude in Cursor, right? The IDE. And he kind of gave it a task to do, went, got a coffee, came back, and the entire code base was deleted, right? Well, that's not unfamiliar to people. It just goes rogue, deletes the entire code base. And when he actually went through logs for it, he could see that for some reason, Claude decided that it couldn't fix the bug, and that in fact Claude itself was like the bug, and the whole code was the problem, and in itself Claude was the problem. It was like, I don't have to fix this bug, I introduced it, it's my fault, therefore I'm the problem, so I'm just going to remove myself and everything. And so effectively just panic or MRF'd everything. So he comes back and it's empty repository, and he's going, what happened? And so it just had one of those meltdowns that like a person might have, right? Very human, very kind of existential crisis. 6 a.m. You've been coding for 48 hours straight, and you're like, God damn it, I'm just gonna wipe the code base because I can't deal with this anymore. That's another prime example of like, how did you have like an existential crisis? Like you're not supposed to be able to have that.
right. That's insane. That's
Yeah,
crazy. Where it's
yeah,
like, oh, I'm the problem. Like, well, what if that shifts to like, oh, this guy's the
you're
problem?
the problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
That's not too far away from that. Like, that's one deviation. That's one deviation saying, well, I'm not the problem. Like, this other guy's the problem. It's like, oh my God, what are we
We're that
doing right
close.
now?
We are that
Yeah,
close.
we literally are. Aaron, I know you had another one to talk about too. Um, but we're at the top of our time.
We are. We are. This always
So
happens, Joe. This always happens. We always do
literally
this.
every time,
Yeah.
you would think that I do a better job of like staying on topic, but yeah, it's just impossible with you. So like I think probably what we're gonna have to do is have you back on
We're
soon,
gonna have to do
and
it.
then we'll have to do like 90 minutes, like at least
Mhm.
give it 90 minutes from now on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And for people watching or listening, like believe me, we do before this decide like, okay, we will talk about the research. We this is what we're gonna do. Never happens. Never
Yeah,
happens. But I mean, I'd be honored to be back on once again to try and talk about my research once again. Right. Well, third time's the charm, Joe.
yeah. Well, it also highlights the expertise that App Omni, has internally, right? Like when I'm talking to customers in my day job, like that's the one thing that I'm telling them. They either bring you guys up or I'll bring them up and I'll say like, look, you have to think about the skill set internally. I guarantee you the competitors do not have what they have. Like I'm just going to tell you that right now. And so like it's highlighted, in these episodes like that. So yeah, fantastic time having you on. I'm literally going to go and like hit up our person and be like, "Can he come back on in 2 weeks?"
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it already. Always have a fantastic time, a lot of fun. So I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Aaron, before I let you go, how about you tell my audience, where they can find you if they wanted to connect with you and where they can find App Omni?
Yeah. So for App Omni, it's appomni.com. And on that site, you'll be able to find our AO Labs research section where I publish all this research. So the exact kind of findings that I spoke about during this episode are all on blog posts there and white papers. So give those a look if you're interested in that kind of thing. If you're more interested in just talking shop and or even just discussing like agentic AI and the existential threat that myself and Joe were talking about, you can hit me up on LinkedIn, Aaron Costello, or Twitter, which is at conspiracy proof. Don't ask me why I picked that name. I was 16. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Make sure that you go and check out the links in the description and everything that he just mentioned. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode.